future our action shows. We will go into the world, our faith is strong and our beliefs are true. Within us the flag of deity unfurled, because we know what we must do.
The religious fervor of the early half of the 21st century left many individuals feeling the need to choose sides in the raging debates. Nobody wanted to choose a side unwisely, to risk the multitude of projected destinations for the unfaithful in the life after this life, in Torazon. Perhaps the most deeply significant influence on mankind throughout the ages has been the need to secure continuance after death destroys the body. To know that death itself is not that annihilation of self that atheists proclaim it to be. This aspect of the human condition is the lever that men of great power and little faith have used to motivate the faithful to obtain eternal existence in the life after this life, often by spurring them to commit murder, suicide, patricide, and regicide in the name of their various faiths. The assassination in Hath was but one of those events that was pivotal in the chaos that preceded the culmination of the project. Lioness of Hath, on the partnership with Estolia, 2058.
Jasmine glanced out the window of the small 6-seater airplane, and then wished she hadn't. Part of the metal for the propeller housing was rusted away. She closed her eyes and focused instead on the reason for her journey. When her boss called her into her office, she hoped to learn that her request for a raise in her salary would be successful. The hike in her rent was going to make it impossible to afford to keep the job. But Monica's long face was even more mournful than usual when she told Jasmine that she just did not qualify for a raise in her salary. Even if her work was every bit as good as a junior editor, she only had the education to be paid as a proofreader. She did not expect Monica to solve her problems for her when she said,
"I shall have to look for another job then."
Monica picked up a newspaper on her desk and slid it in front of Jasmine, pointing to an advertisement circled in red.
"I thought you might be interested in this job. I'll hate to lose you, but if you must go, I want to make sure you are taken care of."
The airplane coming to a landing jerked her out of her thoughts. It came to a halt next to a small building. She climbed out and was instantly enchanted by the forest surrounding the small airstrip. The pilot quickly slung her luggage to the ground, and then said,
"I'll be off right away."
She nodded to the pilot before striding briskly towards the terminal. She pulled her luggage after her and wondered if she had made the wrong choice to respond to the advertisement for a live-in personal assistant to a writer. There was no going back now, though. Everything of worth that she possessed was gone, stored, or in her suitcases. The terminal was sparsely furnished and nearly vacant. A silver-haired man folded up a newspaper and tucked it under his arm as he approached her.
"Jasmine?"
he asked. She nodded.
"Mr. Zakarian?"
"Yes, but please call me Dominic."
Taking her suitcases and leaving her with her carry-on bag, he led the way out to a dark green car in the parking lot. After he stowed her suitcases in the trunk, he opened the passenger door for her and then closed it politely behind her once she was seated.
"Thank you for agreeing to help me,"
he said. He drove with expertise on the twisting country roads.
"It is about a 40-mile journey to my property. It will take an hour to get there."
"You did say it was remote,"
she pointed out.
"Indeed."
They drove in silence for a few minutes, and then he said,
"I wanted to tell you something of the situation before we arrive at my home. I prefer to be on a first-name basis with everyone. I hope it is okay for me to call you Jasmine, and I insist you call me Dominic."
He had a faint accent. Despite his silver-white hair, while he spoke, her estimate of his age started to go down. Either he had always had silver hair, or was prematurely gray.
"In addition to myself,"
he said,
"and you two others live on the property. Helix and Alondra Kyrian work for me and are very good at what they do. Alondra is my housekeeper. She does all the cleaning and cooking. Her husband helps around the house as a handyman, a groundskeeper, a chauffeur, and any other odd job we can call up. They live in a separate cottage not far from the main house. They, too, will prefer you to use their first names.
That comes naturally to me.
Aside from that courtesy,
he said with a smile in his voice.
I do ask that you allow me the luxury of treating you in all ways like a lady.
She frowned and studied his profile as he drove carefully on the treacherous mountain road.
What do you mean by that?
Nothing to be alarmed about.
He said with a quick glance towards her.
I do prefer, if we drive anywhere like now, that you allow me to open the car door for you, both when getting into and when getting out of the vehicle. It is not much, but I enjoy treating women to the courtesies of a bygone era.
I think I can accept that.
Excellent. You mentioned in our phone interview that you were fine working odd hours and that you had no intention of keeping much of a social life, so you would prefer to work when necessary and enjoy nature when not working.
I remember you saying that while your home is remote, it is in a very delightful setting.
She said.
I believe it is truly one of the most beautiful places on earth.
He sounded somewhat wistful. Changing the subject, he said.
You mentioned that you do not have a passport.
No, I have never needed one.
She admitted.
I should like you to apply for one. You will need a passport so that whenever I choose to travel, you will be able to accompany me. I will, of course, pay all the costs, and I do not anticipate you will need it any sooner than you could reasonably get it.
After another long silence, he invited her.
Tell me a little more about yourself.
What is there to tell?
She asked.
I've lived an uneventful life. I graduated from a private high school 2 years ago and have been working with a publisher as a proofreader ever since. I applied for the job you posted because I couldn't afford the steep rise in rent on my previous salary.
Did you leave behind a boyfriend?
No,
She said firmly.
I haven't dated much.
Will you forgive the question if I ask if you have ever been intimate with a man?
He asked. She flushed, looking at him again.
That's extremely personal. Why does it matter?
He smiled, but did not look at her.
My personal assistant before you proclaimed she was fine with the solitude, but really she wanted me to think of her as marriage material. When I set her clear and told her I was not even remotely interested in her or any other woman, she took it as a license to invite men over for the night more than once. I honestly found the lack of quality standards within her so appalling that I decided I would not hire another woman who was planning to throw herself at me. Nor would I hire anyone who would bring numerous sexual conquests into my home.
So, you reasoned that if I was as yet untouched, I wouldn't fling myself at you and certainly wouldn't be bringing home any strays?
Something like that.
He murmured. He slowed the car down and then turned left onto a gravel road. A heavy metal gate opened at the touch of a button on the dash of his car.
Security is important to me,
he said as he drove through the gate.
I need to trust my assistant to work with me rather than against me.
We feel the blessings granted us, sons and daughters of Zacharias. We will go.